Stop it. I swear to God. Leave me alone. Thank you. Thank you. Yay. Thank you. Now leave it that way, please. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Twig and Magic Tabletop. In this video, I thought I'd really test my color theory. A little bit of backstory about myself. I'm actually a hairstylist and a barber by trade. So I think I know the color wheel pretty well. I do a lot of color and do a lot of cuts, whatever the case may be. I think I know what I'm doing. So I thought I'd challenge myself and apply that to a model. So what I did was I went online, I found this website, it's called Coolors, Coolors, and it's a random palette generator. I took that palette generator, clicked on it, and came up with the palette. Now, initially, I thought that it was going to be pretty easy because as long as I have a warm tone and maybe a cool tone and maybe a neutral, some type of neutral colors, that I can paint anything. Well, that wasn't the case. The colors that they chose for me did not come up with what I envisioned. So in this video, you'll get the chance to see all my trials and tribulations and what my final thoughts were. So let's dive right in. So what we have here is Night on a Horse from WizKids. My wife gave this to me as a gift for Christmas. She made me a whole advent calendar of D&D models. This is the palette generator here, and this is the palette that it chose for me. And boy, this sucks. The palette that's being used is a triad palette. It has 3 primary colors, even though they don't look like they're primary colors. It does have a red, a yellow, and blue, even though the red is represented as pink. The yellow is more of a orange yellow, it's an off yellow, and the blue is a very, very deep blue. So with that being said, this is going to be a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be. Only because I realized, and you'll see later in the video, that the primary colors don't really make any form of brown that I was trying to create. So I had to rethink my entire plan, which was not necessarily fun for me, but it definitely was a challenge. As I was getting my model ready to prime, I didn't know that WizKid pre-primes their models. So as I was scraping any mold lines off, I realized that I was scraping some paint off with it, which isn't that big a deal. It's just kind of weird to pre-prime your models, especially if your primer is not going to hold properly. But nonetheless, I primed my model black, and it got me set and ready to start my painting process. So now I was trying to come up with a game plan as to what my colors were. These were the actual colors that I had. As you can see, the blue was pretty precise. I didn't have like a light violet, purple, bluish color. So I knew that I could mix to get that. Yellow was spot on. White, it didn't do what I needed to do. And the pink was a lot more pink. But knowing what the white can do, I could definitely mix for it and try my best to get those colors. But this is pretty much what I had to work with. Didn't start off as planned. I'm putting my colors on the palette. Again, I like to show you guys the palette and the colors that I'm working with because I want to stay true to what I actually am doing. start off with the covering for the horse, and I decide that I'm going to have majority blue for the model. Anything that's considered cloth, it's going to be blue. And I'm going to build up my layers using the volumetric process of painting. The goal is to start off with a dark blue and end with a lighter blue in any of the raised areas of either one of the cloths. There's a cloth, I guess there's a covering on the knight as well as the covering on the horse. One thing that I know that I like to do is start off in the lowest areas of the recesses and build up from there. And considering the horse's fur or skin, whatever you want to call it, is the lowest point of the model, I had to create for that. This is when I realized that I may not be able to create brown. And boy, was I mad. I tried everything I possibly could to get to as brown as I possibly could because I was thinking that orange is a complementary color to blue. So if I created a very warm hue for the blue colors, that it would complement the rider as well as the horse. Well, that didn't happen because I couldn't create my color. So I decided to go with a deeper gray and then build up and create more of a white horse. Which isn't so bad. You know, we all have to adjust whenever we are painting our models. So once I'm done with the volumes of the horse, I went in and did the volumes for the horse covering. I began to mix the lighter purple with the blue to build up those volumes. Now, again, this is probably one of the more difficult processes for me, only because I have to pay attention to where the light actually hits and then build from there. Obviously, the deepest part of the folds will remain that darker blue, whereas the higher part of the cloth clothing covering for the horse, whatever you want to call it, begins to build up those lighter portions. So as I was painting this, right here probably was the point where I should have stopped my violet blue mixture, or light purple, light violet blue mixture. But I kept going, and that's when it hit the fan. I got into the groove of doing this, and then I realized 3/4 of the way through it that I went too far, and I went past what my palette actually was, to the point where I actually was putting straight light violet, light purple, whatever you can call it, on top of the model, which began to make it look kind of funky because the cloth itself wasn't supposed to be violet. I thought maybe at this point that I could just glaze the recesses and kind of cover it up, blend it together, and it would work out. But realistically speaking, I ended up having to glaze over the entire model and essentially cover up most of my work. When it was all said and done, I was able to change the hue of the model, and it was more or less what I was trying to achieve. But I could have cut out maybe 30 minutes of my work if I hadn't paid attention to what I was doing in the first place. Things get worse from there. I didn't know what to paint the harness, and I was trying to make that pink work. So I tried a pink, then I tried to mix pink with orange. I hated it. I hated every last bit of this model when I got to this point. I even tried covering it all up with just yellow. Then the reins, I colored it yellow and looked at it and was just like, it's bringing too much attention to the reins, and I don't want any attention. The attention should be to the horse and the rider specifically. Those are the main characters. So I decided to paint the reins black, and to bring less attention to it, I said, okay, the best possible scenario is to cover it up and paint it the same color as the horse cover and just build on my layers, create texture, create some light reflections so that, you know that it's there, but it's not grabbing your attention immediately. All of that, I did the same exact thing I did in my previous video. I forgot to paint something. And that is going to be a trend in every single one of my videos. There is something that I'm going to forget to paint that I am going to have to go back to. And that was the rider's cloak or covering. I don't know what you call these things. I really should have did some research first. But nonetheless, I still had to go back and pretty much follow the same process that I went through with the recovering, whatever you want to call it. But now comes the horse seat saddle thing. The saddle, that's what it's called. This was the hardest process because, again, most saddles are brown. I don't see any other color that saddles could possibly be. But so, what did I do? I painted it black to start over, and then I tried to figure out what I could possibly do to create a brown color without using black, without using red, without using any other colors on my palette. started mixing. I know that to get brown, I need 1 part blue to 2 parts red to 3 parts yellow to make a true brown. But the issue is I don't have red and I don't have a true yellow. So I tried, and the first thing that popped up was gray. I got the most perfect gray that you possibly could have. Why? I'm assuming because the magenta color or pink or whatever you want to call it has a slightly blue tint to it, making it closer to the red violet side with a little bit of white on the inside of it, making gray. That's what I'm assuming. I don't 100% know, but I got the best gray that you could possibly get. It just was, there was no hue of yellow, there was no hue of green, there was no hue of blue, it was just gray. So I just kept trying. So I went from another approach. I tried starting off with mixing the pink and the yellow and then adding blue to it. Maybe my mix ratios were off, so I was trying my hardest. Still couldn't get the color I wanted. So what did I do? I painted it gray. I realized that gray was going to be the only color that I had to work with when we are dealing with neutral colors. So that's what I had to paint. Once I had the gray base color down, I began to add the ice yellow or bone color to make the gray areas lighter and lighter, adding some texture and dimension to it. Once that was done, I decided to do my own freehand that matched the shield. Now I had to really concentrate, so I broke this piece up into separate segments because I couldn't work with the camera and paint that at the same time. I'm sorry in advance. Next, I added some detail to the shield. Then here you can see I added some lighter parts to the shield just to add some dimension to keep it from being so boring. Then I added some detail to the horse harness around his eyes. Then I go into the helmet. I add some detail into the helmet just to make everything more cohesive and show that he represents his kingdom or his people. Then I cheat. I couldn't do anything non-metallic metal only because I couldn't use black. Blue wouldn't have worked. It would have made it a lot harder. Still, and yet a lot of monochromatic color. I wasn't really trying to do that. So I was just bit the bullet and used silver. Then I added some pink as a shade color, mostly because I felt like I wasn't using the entirety of the palette, so I just do that in there for fun. I hit the high points with the silver again, and then that's the model. I actually ended up really happy with the end result of this model, even though I struggled a lot with the palette that I was given. I think I came through building on my layers, using every piece of the palette. Let me know what you guys think. Did I succeed in a challenge? Did I truly cheat? And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And remember, put a little magic in everything you do. See you guys next time. That's good enough. I don't care.